You're listening to the Future Tech Health Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Until I reached age 40, I never realized the obvious, that we all have medical issues, or we at least have a family member or close relation that had, has, or will have them in the future. Medicine and biological systems are the final frontier. Until we've conquered death, figured out how life began, cured cancer, and understood our purpose in the universe, there's a heck of a lot to talk about when it comes to our health. Future Tech Health means I'll be covering futuristic topics that are actually already in clinical trials, or even starting to appear on shelves or by prescription, or available for your own use. We dive deep into stem cells, CRISPR-Cas9, the science of sleep, epigenetics, medical testing, cancer, ketogenic diets, stem cells, aging, regenerative medicine, and more. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a serious medical problem. Remember, however, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and share it with friends. Thank you. Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Future Tech and Future Tech Health Podcast. I have Drew Manning, the founder of Fit to Fat to Fit, and I've been following Drew for a number of years. I read his book a bunch of years ago, and I thought it was really cool that, he would go from being a super fit personal trainer guy that's ripped to someone that's, like a lot of people, where he stopped eating right, stopped exercising, and gained a ton of weight, and frankly probably put his health in serious danger just to get a feel for what, a lot of people go through. So I thought that was very cool that he did that, and, very brave. And it's really cool to talk to him. So Drew, how you doing?
Rich, thanks for having me on, man. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, and before we start, I just want to let the audience know I've been interviewing a lot of the people at the that are going to be speaking at the Metabolic Health Summit that's happening the very end of January in Los Angeles. And Drew's going to be there with tons of other great speakers. So I encourage anyone listening to check it out, the Metabolic Health Summit. So Drew, to start off with, can you give people just a quick tidbit? What are you going to be talking about at the summit? And then I want to go into other aspects of what you do.
Yeah, so, for the most part, the Metabolic Health Summit, which I'm really excited about, which, by the way, is in California, for anyone listening that is interested in it, just go to metabolichealthsummit.com to check it out. It's going to be a great event. I'm super excited about it. I like that they brought someone like me on, because normally this is a seminar for doctors, scientists, people that are doing continuing education in this field of health, nutrition, wellness. And, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. So the fact that they invited me, I feel really humbled and honored to be there. But I think it's good because it's bringing people with different demographics that are in the same industry, learn from experts, but then I'll be speaking specifically on more so the mental and emotional side of transformation with a ketogenic approach, right? So I'm a big fan of keto. I've been doing it for a few years now. I've been on the Dr. Oz show. Transformed thousands of people's lives through the keto diet. But, my approach is different than someone like, say, Dr. Dominic D'Agostino, right? who's a scientist who does clinical studies and things like that. But I want to bring in the mental and emotional aspect of transformation of health and fitness that is overlooked a lot of times in the health and fitness industry. And it all stems back from my Fit to Fat to Fit journey, where I learned just how wrong I was with my approach to trying to transform people, right? I could give someone the best meal plans. I could give them the best workouts. I could give them, the best meal prep tips and hacks to optimize their brain and their body from a physical perspective. But none of that matters unless that person knows how to overcome their own mental and emotional challenges. And so that's what I hope to bring to the game. That's what I hope to bring to the fitness industry, is to help people more so on the mental and emotional side, which is where I think most people struggle, right? Staying consistent, living a healthy lifestyle.
Well, great. Can you talk about, in case people don't know, tell us about the Fit to Fat to Fit journey. What was like a skeleton or sketch of it?
Yeah, so this is something I did back in 2011, 2012, where I had this idea to get fat on purpose. And I know that sounds ridiculous and crazy. Why would someone do that, right? I grew up in a family of 11 brothers and sisters, and we all played sports. I played football and wrestling from a very young age. And so for me, I never once struggled with my weight. And then in 2009, I became a personal trainer. And then here I was, someone who had never struggled with their weight, trying to help people who had struggled with their weight their whole life. And I thought it was easy. It's super simple. Here's the meal plans. You follow the meal plans. You eat the healthy food. You go to the gym. You do the workouts. And then boom, you see results if you stay consistent with it. But then I would get frustrated all the time because they would tell me, Drew, I'm trying to stay consistent, but I messed up. Like, I didn't go to the gym and get the workout in because I was sore, I was tired, I was stressed. Or I cheated on my meal plan and I had cereal or soda or cakes or cookies or whatever. And I'm like, why don't you just do it? It's not that hard. Just put the soda down, put the junk food down, and just do it. And that was my mentality. I had a very black and white mentality. And so I had this idea of, it just kind of came to my mind. It was like a light bulb moment where I'm like, hey, what if I do this? It was crazy and ridiculous. And I decided to run with it. So for 6 months, I decided to stop exercising. So that was the idea. And I could eat whatever I wanted to, an unrestricted diet. And I try to focus on mostly typical American foods, right? We've all seen Morgan Spurlock and Super Size Me. We all know fast food is unhealthy for us. What I want to do is focus on everyday American foods that we grew up on in the 70s and 80s, eating lots of highly processed, cheap, affordable, convenient foods that taste really, really good, that are marketed to us sometimes as healthy foods. And so I focused on those foods for 6 months, ended up getting 75 pounds.
That's insane.
And it was, and it was one of the most humbling things, one of the most hardest things I've ever done. And then the next 6 months is where I had to walk the walk and lose the weight. And that's why it's called Fit to Fat to Fit. So that's the nutshell version of it.
Did you look at blood markers? Did you have periodic blood work done throughout the journey?
I did. I had a doctor monitor me on a monthly basis that drew my blood. I had Dr. Oz monitor my blood work as well. And it was crazy how quickly your body can change. For 31 years of my life, I was, somewhat fit and healthy growing up. And then in just 6 months time, to see how quickly your health can decline when you live a sedentary lifestyle was really scary. It didn't matter how long I had been in shape for. It didn't matter how long I had been healthy for. In just 6 months of letting myself go, things got really scary really quickly.
What are some examples, maybe some markers that frightened you, or the doctor said, hey, you better watch out?
Yeah, some of the numbers that pop out were my blood pressure got up to 167 over 113. And we all know that 120 over 80 is normal.
On average?
Yeah, 167 over 113. So that got really scary really quickly. My doctor also did a sonogram of my liver, and I developed a non-alcoholic fatty liver in just 6 months' time. I wasn't drinking alcohol during this experiment. It was mostly just soda and these processed carbs, but the same type of damage can be done to your organs, like your liver, in a short period of time by eating these foods and living a sedentary lifestyle. My testosterone dropped to the low 200s, which if you're a 31-year-old male and you have low testosterone, that's not fun. It wasn't fun to go through that, but people don't realize how food affects them at the cellular level, more so than just weight loss, right? It affects their hormones, right? It affects their sleep. And so it's this vicious cycle that people go down when they live a sedentary lifestyle eating these processed foods. And so, yes, I gained a ton of weight, a ton of fat, but that's not the biggest thing. The biggest thing was how quickly my health declined. I wish I had all my numbers in front of me, but yeah, everything was in the red from, my HDL, LDL, triglycerides, glucose levels. They were all in the red really quickly after eating this way for just even a couple months.
Yeah, that's insane. Wow. What about, so mentally and emotionally, that's your focus lately. What was that like? Forget about the weight and all this stuff. What did you feel like?
That was the biggest lessons on the mental and emotional side, because I was prepared to, get some man boobs and a big gut. I wasn't prepared for how it was going to affect me emotionally. So here's the thing. You got to understand, my identity growing up in shape my whole life was based on what my body looks like. And so for the first time in my life, being overweight, I was super self-conscious. Being out in public, I wanted to tell strangers, hey, this isn't really what it looked like. Here's my before picture. Go to this website. This is just an experiment. I don't really look this way. I wanted to tell people that I'm not this overweight person because I was so used to being the fit, confident person out in public that it totally messed with my self-esteem, my confidence levels. I was married at the time, and I remember wanting to cover up in front of my wife at the time, and I didn't want her to see me naked. I didn't want to see myself naked. It started to affect me. I remember a couple of quick stories. One is my daughter was 2 at the time, and she wanted to play with me when I got home from work. I actually had a full-time job in the medical field at this time as I was doing this. A lot of people don't know that, but I came home from work one day, just exhausted, tired, run down, and my daughter wanted me to play with her. So I played with her for a little bit, and it was mostly running around the house where I would chase her. And after a couple of minutes, I was out of breath. Chafing became an issue, which was super uncomfortable. And I told her, like, hey, Daddy needs to take a break. I can't. She was trying to pull me off the couch. No, Daddy, chase me, chase me. And I told her no. And to see her eyes tear up and she started crying, she didn't understand why I was doing this. But it broke my heart because it made me realize in that moment that, how bad it must suck for parents or grandparents that can't play with their kids or their grandkids, not so much because of their weight, but because of their health and how much that must hurt them, And so it really started to affect me on the mental and emotional level of this journey was way more than I bargained for. It was way harder than I ever imagined. And so those were some of the lessons that I learned on the mental and emotional side as I was gaining weight and realizing, wow, this is so much more of a mental and emotional journey. That's what my book, Fit to Fat to Fit, goes into. And I think that's why it became a popular New York Times bestseller, was because of the mental and emotional side.
Yeah, I've always been heavy, and I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm just, telling you what I experienced. Like, and I'm from New York, and people would straight up, and they would say, hey, you fat bastard. And, kind of a term of endearment, but they would still say it. And even today, people say, oh, hey, big guy, or what's up, big man? And, you don't want to hear that stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
So what about the second half, once you plateaued and then you started going down? What was the emotional part of that like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was another great lesson that I learned. So here's the thing. I had 6 months to lose 75 pounds. And so I had to kind of go cold turkey. I couldn't ease my way into it. I had to just one day cut it out. And I remember those first 2 weeks eating healthy food. Part of me was excited. I'm like, okay, I'm going to lose this weight. I'm going to get back to fit in no time. And those first 2 weeks that I went through of transitioning back to a healthy lifestyle were literally hell. Like, it sucked so bad because my body was going through withdrawal symptoms of wanting that food that I had had every single day for 6 months. And now I'm saying, nope, no more Cinnamon Toast Crunch, no more Mountain Dew. Now you're going to have spinach shakes and broccoli and chicken and healthy food. And my body kind of fought back as if I was almost getting off of drugs, right? Like, I felt these withdrawal symptoms of feeling miserable, grumpy, headaches, moody, tired. The food didn't taste nearly as good as I remembered it. And it clicked for me, remembering this is what my clients must have experienced, something similar. When I would give them a meal plan and I expected them to be perfect with it. And I didn't realize how powerful the emotional attachment to food really is. And this was such a humbling part of the journey for those first 2 weeks of just feeling miserable. And here I was eating all the healthy food I knew I was supposed to eat. And it just opened my eyes to how powerful the emotional attachment to food really is. And it is kind of like getting off of a drug. And so it was really eye-opening for me to go through that, very humbling. The journey back to fit, getting back to fit, it sounds so easy if you look at the pictures, or it looks easy if you look at the pictures of me just, boom, losing the weight and then I got back to fit. But I kind of compare it to being on top of this mountain my whole life, right? As a trainer, a coach, being fit. And then my clients are at the bottom of the mountain. And from the top, it looks so easy. Like, oh, there's the path. You just follow it one step at a time. It doesn't seem so hard, right? Because I've always been at the top. Now, for the first time in my life, I was at the bottom. And that journey up was so much harder than I ever imagined it would be. It's very humbling to have to do push-ups on my knees, struggling to do one pull-up, and having to work out again and feeling sore and tired. And it was a very humbling experience in the end to get back to fit. I knew that I had to do it, though, because people were watching me, right, which kept me accountable. But my eyes were open, and I realized how much of this is a mental and emotional journey for people as they make that climb up the mountain, versus, hey, just physically push yourself and do the work that you're supposed to do, no excuses. The journey is so much more emotional than people think, and that's the problem that we have in the fitness industry, is the lack of empathy for people that are struggling. We think, hey, eat less and work out. What's wrong with you? We know what to do, but it's just the application of it that's so hard for people to stay consistent with, because they've been living a certain way their whole life and they want instant results, with a magic pill, or just 2 months of staying consistent thinking I should have a six-pack by now. And that's where people give up and they go back to their old ways. And it's frustrating for people. And this is what I experienced. And I'm not going to say my journey was exactly the same as someone who grew up their entire life out of shape, right? I don't know what it's like for you or for anybody that's grown or that's been overweight. My journey is different, right? I was only overweight for 6 months, but it gave me a small window of understanding of just how hard it can be. And that was enough for me to change my ways in the way I approach helping people today.
Well, how close were you to giving up when you had to make the journey back to fit? And, did it get easier after the first 2 weeks and it was smooth sailing, or was the whole thing just a slog?
Yeah, that's a great question. It did become easier after the 2 weeks, and that's what I try and tell people. It's like if you just stay consistent with it, your body adjusts, and it does get easier. At first, any kind of big change in your life is going to be really, really hard, and that goes from a physical perspective to a financial perspective to mental, emotional, spiritual. Right? It's going to be hard at first, but it did get easier for me. But there were times where I did want to quit or give up. There was moments where I didn't want to go to the gym because it was cold outside and I was tired and exhausted. And I'm like, you know what? No one's really going to know if I just hide this. But the accountability from here's the reason that I kept going and pushed through it was because there was thousands of people from all across the world doing this journey with me. And that's the way I set it up. When I lost the weight, I announced on social media, my website, YouTube, saying, hey, you guys, I have 75 pounds to lose in 6 months. Here's how I'm going to do it. If you want to follow me for free, you can see exactly what I do every single day for 6 months to see how I do it, to show you that I'm not starving myself. I'm not working out 3 times a day. It's not some kind of, crazy routine that I have that is unsustainable for your average person. I wanted to show people that this was a lifestyle change. And so knowing that there were people emailing me every day like, Drew, I love the meal plans today. I love the workouts. Let's get after it today. I knew there was people counting on me. And if they could do it, I could do it too.
How many people actually did it with you and lost weight, or did there's lots?
Oh man, I don't think there's any way to count. But after it was over, after I lost the weight, hundreds of emails with transformation stories and thank you notes on social media. It's hard to know exactly how many people did it with me, but there was a ton of people from all over the world, and that's what kept me going. And seeing their transformations at the end of it was worth it because these people weren't overweight for just 6 months, right? This wasn't just this little experiment they were doing. This was something that they did, and they were probably more applicable or more relatable to your average person out there than me and my journey. But it was me doing this that I guess started the motivation or the inspiration to make that change. And so that's what was inspiring to me, and that's what kept me going.
How much harder do you think it would be for someone that's been overweight for 10 or 20 years to make the journey to fit? Is it about the same or much harder or no?
No, it's going to be way harder, right? From a mental and emotional perspective. Let's say someone grew up their entire life out of shape. They never once learned about healthy versus non-healthy foods. They just ate the food that was in front of them. They didn't really care about what they looked like and exercise and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden after 30, 40 years of that, they're like, okay, I'm going to make a change. Starting January 1st, I'm going to do this with Drew. And, I'm never eating sugar again. I'm never touching soda again. The emotional battle that goes on, that people try and willpower their way through these types of lifestyle changes. And so it would be way harder for someone that, had never exercised a day in their life compared to me. So I want to make sure people understand that is each person's individual journey is individual, and it can't be compared to mine or someone else's because no one has had those experiences that single person has had. And so of course it's going to be a lot harder. One, the knowledge, the discipline, the muscle memory. For me, I had all of that, right? And so for me, my journey would be a lot easier than someone that, had never worked out a day in their life.
Yeah, and you also did this at the age of 31, right?
Yeah, 31 versus 51 or 61. Although I did, one of my most amazing transformations was a 60-year-old lady from Idaho, a widow that lost over 100 pounds doing my program. And I remember she would email me every single day, send her progress pictures. It was remarkable. And to see a woman in her 60s lose over 100 pounds following my journey was remarkable and so inspiring. And that's what I'm saying is each person's journey is individual. If someone like that can do it, of course, maybe like a 40-year-old man could do it. But you can't compare yourself to other people, because then that's where you kind of get in trouble, because you think, oh, either I'm a failure compared to this person, or, if you compare yourself to someone that's in a worse position, you're like, at least I'm better than that person, and so you kind of just get stuck and stay where you are if you keep comparing yourself to other people.
Yeah, no, I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just trying to provide a context. But you were 31,
Yeah.
relatively young. You had only been overweight for a very short period of time, and like you said, you had the muscle memory, etc.
Yeah.
It still took you 6 months. What's your guess? How long have you observed? Let's say someone's like 52, I don't know, and they've been overweight for 20, 30 years, and they want to lose, a lot, 70, 80 pounds. Do you think it's reasonable they would take them a year or even 2 years, or is 6 months a pretty good benchmark for people?
6 months is a good enough time to see, results, some good, decent results if you stay consistent with it. Your body is really resilient, and it can heal itself. But the problem is our perception of this is, I want to lose X amount of weight in this amount of time, when in reality, it's not just about weight loss. We think the goal, the end all be all, is just, hey, to lose weight, and then you're healthier, then you're done, and you can relax a little bit. When in reality, your body is still changing on the inside, even though you might not see that number on the scale go down. So our perception of what success looks like, I think, needs to change. It's more than just weight loss or the scale weight. And so I want people listening to understand that is, whether you lose weight or not is not the most important thing. The goal really is fat loss, not weight loss. And so changing your body composition, reducing your body fat percentage, maintaining or building lean muscle mass is going to take some time, right? Most people spent 20, 30, 40, 50 years gaining this weight slowly, right? Not in 6 months. I kind of did it in a shortened window. And it's not going to be able to change the way you want it to with just staying consistent for 3 to 6 months. You will still see good results depending on how hard you push yourself and how extreme you want to be. But is that sustainable, right? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Can I sustain this as a lifestyle change for the rest of my life? Or is this like a 6-month sprint where I'm going to run out of gas and have to stop and go back to my old ways, and then maybe gain some weight back and then try and do that again? I think that's what most people try and do, versus, hey, I'm going to focus on the process and then let the results take care of themselves over time.
Yeah, why is that? For you, once you got back to being fit, was it like a fever breaking and you were fine from there? Or were you still compelled to, to try to break it? I mean, and why are people that would spend 6 months and do all the right things, why would they fall back then?
Yeah, because like I said, a lot of it has to do with identity, right? A lot of people on Biggest Loser or these TV shows that lose a ton of weight in a short period of time, people are shocked at the percentage of them that gain it back. I think it's over 90%, because even though they lose all the weight and they had all that help, once the accountability is gone and the TV show and the fame and the lights and people watching them are gone, a lot of them mentally haven't made that mental shift yet of changing their identity, and they still see themselves as an overweight person, even though they're so much more than that. And so a lot of times we focus too much on the results versus, hey, what's the process that I can maintain that gives me a happy balance of, eating healthy, exercising, but not overdoing it and too extreme to where, after 6 months of trying really hard, I give up because it's too much effort and it's not sustainable to live that lifestyle, right? Like on Biggest Loser, I think, was it 16 weeks or something, or 6 to 8 weeks on a boot camp type of camp where they go to, and that's all they do is starve themselves and do 6 to 8 hours of cardio per day. That's not sustainable when they get back to the real world. So a lot of it has to do with their mental shift, never changing, right? And changing their environment when they get back home, versus just trying to willpower their way through it once they get back home. So I wish there was an easy answer to this and saying, hey, everyone's problem is the same. It's so individual, right? A lot of our emotional attachment to food or these old lifestyles have to do with maybe some type of trauma, right? Psychological issues. A lot of it stems back to that, and so it's really something that people have to dig deep on and look towards the outside to find help, right? Whether that's a therapist or a psychologist, to help them deal with these deep-seated emotional issues. And I think people want it to be easy. They don't want it to be deep. They don't want to have to do that work. They just want to be like, hey, what's the magic pill? What's the easiest way to lose the most amount of weight in the shortest amount of time with the least amount of effort?
Well, how many outliers are there? People that will start and stall, people that it just won't work seemingly. Maybe they're sabotaging it somehow. Like, how often does this work? How often does it not work, and why?
How often does that happen? Is that what you're asking?
How often do you see, like, your program, for instance, or other programs, work or not work, and why?
I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think like my program is better than anybody else's program and vice versa, because different things work for different people, right? And some people, for example, love keto and some people love veganism. It just depends on what works best for them. And so for me, it's more so the perception of the program. And like I said, I think a lot of it has to do with these deep-seated issues of why do I struggle to stay consistent eating healthy? Why do I keep giving into this piece of cake when I come home from work and I'm stressed out, right? It's finding a way to change people's perception of what health and fitness needs to be. I think a lot of people, the majority of Americans, right, because we have an obesity epidemic, so I would say the large majority of people struggle with this, right? And I kind of said this in the beginning, I could give them the best meal plans, the best program to follow, but unless they know how to overcome their mental and emotional challenges, nothing's going to change, right? They could do it for 30, 60, 90 days, but then go back to their old ways unless they have a huge mental shift of figuring out why they struggle letting go of certain foods and sabotaging themselves and letting people, letting what other people think affect their decisions. And so, this is why I'm trying to bring more awareness and more empathy to the fitness industry to help people realize that we can have the best science and the best data and all the knowledge in the world, but unless someone knows that they feel cared about on their journey, I don't think it's going to stick with them. And I love this quote, and this is something I live by: is nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And this is perfect for any other trainer or coach or doctor, someone that is out there influencing people's lives, or trying to at least. And I think that's really, really important. It's not a lack of knowledge. It's not a lack of knowledge for most people. And it's not a lack of willpower either. It's helping people, I think, feel cared about and having some kind of empathy in their situation to help them believe that they can do this, that they're worth it to make this change for the long term, not just for 30 or 90 days. I'm talking about for the long term, for the rest of their life. And a lot of it has to do with self-worth.
Interesting. Well, what did this do to your relationship with your clients? Did you put them on hold during this period? And what happened before and after? Like, do they listen to you more now, or what do you say differently to them?
Yeah, it's a great question. I really don't coach people one-on-one anymore. Ever since this took off, it kind of changed my dynamic of what I did as a personal trainer. Now my goal is to obviously try and impact the masses with social media presence and putting out programs, digital content, having private Facebook groups, things like that. The way it's changed me is, yes, I still provide people with the physical tools they need to transform their health, right? So obviously keto meal plans and recipes and cookbooks, but I try and help them more so on the mental and emotional side. And that's why I have these accountability support groups, either through Facebook or through other private platforms, where like-minded people can come together with one goal in mind to help each other out on this journey. And you see people from all over the world that have never met support each other, give each other the help and the love and encouragement that they need to make these changes. And that way they're not doing this alone. I think when people try and willpower their way through this by themselves, it's 100 times harder, right? Because all those negative self-talk and those self-limiting beliefs keep coming up over and over and over again, and by themselves they don't know how to overcome them. And so that's why if you have like-minded people come together in these private support groups, it's so much more powerful. And that's what people really need is coach, accountability, support system, love and empathy and respect on their journey, rather than just, hey, eat less and work out, follow this meal plan, and it's going to magically change you.
Yeah. So what you said you've gone into keto eating and you have some resources in that regard. What's your what do things look like now for you, and where are you headed over the next 6 months or a year? How is your program changing, or how is the content you're going to put out going to change?
Yeah, great question. So this is actually perfect timing for this podcast, depending on when it releases. I finally wrote my second book. My first book was Fit to Fat to Fit back in 2012. My second book is called Complete Keto, and it's now available for pre-order on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can just go to completeketo.fittofattofit.com to pre-order. Right now, I'm giving away a ton of incentives for people that pre-order the book. But Complete Keto, my book, what it is in a nutshell is all the data that I've collected and all the scientists and doctors that I've had on my podcast that I've interviewed. I've compiled all the latest and greatest keto research that's out there. But then I also take all the lessons I learned from Fit to Fat to Fit and apply it in this book. So yes, I give you tools on the physical side of keto, right? What it is, how to do it. It's a 30-day program with meal plans, detailed meal plans and recipes and workouts and things like that. But I also provide tools and help on the mental, emotional, spiritual side, because I see this all the time in this industry. People focus on just the physical side of transformation, hey, losing weight, and they think that's going to bring them happiness in this life, when in reality, it doesn't lead to happiness. Just like we all know that having a ton of money, we think, hey, that's going to make me happy. If I have the perfect body, that's going to make me happy, and people will like me more. I'll like myself more. But that's just a lie. That's a myth. That's not true. And so I'm trying to help people on the mental, emotional, spiritual side as much as I am on the physical side in this book, Complete Keto. And so it kind of ties all those things in together. And so that's my goal with this new book, Complete Keto, which launches on February 12th, 2019, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, that's coming real soon. Yeah, I noticed, I've been able to lose a bunch of weight, but still have a bunch more, but I feel a lot better. I've been doing keto-esque eating, so close to
yes.
it. But it's worked a lot. But what I noticed in the emotional side, which I think you may find useful, is that if I don't feel good, then, I'm not a very nice husband, and I'm not as good a father to my kids, and, I may annoy the people I work with and all that. And the better you feel, the better all your relationships will be, because you affect everyone around you. And I think that's one thing that, very few people talk about with being in better health.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great advice right there for anyone listening. And I think, it's so much more than just the weight loss journey. And it's cool that you're definitely realizing that you're different. You're a better you when you take care of your physical health, but also mental, emotional, spiritual health as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, very good. Well, Drew, this is awesome. And I encourage people to come to the Metabolic Health Summit to hear you speak and maybe shake your hand. And then you said your new book's coming, middle of February, Complete Keto. And what other resources do you have for people that want to find out more about what you do?
Yeah, just go to fittofattofit.com, which is my main website, and all my keto programs are on there as well. keto.fittofattofit.com is also my online digital 60-day keto program that's been downloaded over 200,000 times now. And so that's another resource for people if they don't want to wait for the book. It's an older program, still good, still works. Like I said, it's been downloaded by hundreds of thousands of people. But my new book coming out February 12th is like the latest and greatest, plus more help on the mental, emotional side as well.
That's great. Well, Drew, I really appreciate you coming. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
You're listening to the Future Tech Health Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Until I reached age 40, I never realized the obvious, that we all have medical issues, or we at least have a family member or close relation that has, or will have them in the future. Medicine and biological systems are the final frontier. Until we've conquered death, figured out how life began, cured cancer, and understood our purpose in the universe, there's a heck of a lot to talk about when it comes to our health. Future Tech Health means I'll be covering futuristic topics that are actually already in clinical trials, or even starting to appear on shelves or by prescription, or available for your own use. We dive deep into stem cells, CRISPR-Cas9, the science of sleep, epigenetics, medical testing, cancer, ketogenic diets, stem cells, aging, regenerative medicine, and more. My goal for you, the listener, is to learn from these podcasts. You may very well learn something that may change the course of your life for the better, steer you towards a new career, or give you insight into addressing a serious medical problem. Remember, however, this podcast and its content is informational in nature only. No medical, tax, legal, financial, or psychological advice is being given. If you enjoyed the podcast, please listen, subscribe, like, and share it with friends. Thank you.